Good morning, class. Let's see what's in our mystery box. It's a frog. There's a frog in our story today. In fact, there's lots of frogs in our story today. All of these things are going to be in our story. Something red, this is like hail. It's called hail. It comes down from the sky like ice. And there's some bugs in our story. And there's some hurt people that might need a Band-Aid. And there's darkness that comes over. So can you find your coloring page? The one we had the first week was about Moses in the basket. Let's practice how to spell his name. M-O-S-E-S, Moses. So there he is in the basket. His mother kept him safe from the mean king, and his sister Miriam watched over him until the princess found him and took him in and raised him in the palace. And then our next story was about when Moses is all grown up. He left the palace to go be a shepherd, and one day when he was taking care of the sheep, he heard God talking to him through a bush that was burning, but it didn't burn up. Do you remember that? And here's our story today. God wanted Moses to go and tell Pharaoh to let his people go. But Moses was worried he wouldn't be able to do a good job at that. So God said, well, I'll let your brother Aaron come along to help you. Now the Pharaoh did not want the people to leave his land because he worked them so hard. He had them build stone buildings, and a lot of them are called pyramids. So let's hear our story today. It's called Hard Times for Egypt. There's Moses and there's the Pharaoh. Moses went to the king of Egypt. He said, God wants you to let his people go. But the king said no. So God turned all the water into blood. The people could not drink the water, but the king would not let the people go. So this will be how the water, we'll pretend the water turns colors here. You'll see how many times bad things happen, and the king keeps saying, no, you cannot let the people go. And then once in a while he would say, okay, you can go, but then he changes his mind. So listen to the rest of the story. God made frogs come all over the land. So here's our frog. Frogs were in the ovens, they were in the beds, they were everywhere. The king said, make the frogs go away, then your people can go. But after God took the frogs away, the king said, nope, the people cannot go. Then God made gnats come all over the land. The gnats were on the people. They were on the animals. But the king would not let the people go. Then God sent flies to Egypt. The houses were full of flies. The ground was covered with flies. The king said, the people can go, but take away the flies too. So God took the flies away. But then the king said, the people cannot go. This is like our flies and our gnats. Then God said, your cows and your horses and your donkeys will get sick. And that's what happened. All the animals got sick, but the king still would not let them go. So God made the people of Egypt get sick. They had sores all over their bodies. But the king would not let the people go. Then God sent a hailstorm. Here's our hail coming down. Hail beat down everything growing in the fields. The king said, we have had enough. Take the people and go. But when he saw the hail stop, he said, you cannot go. So God sent locusts all over Egypt. They covered the ground until it was black. They ate the fruit of the trees. The king said, take away these locusts, then you can go. But when the locusts were gone, he changed his mind again. So more bugs came. Then God sent darkness to cover the land. There's the darkness. Even in the daytime it was dark. No one could see anything. They could not leave their houses, but the king still would not let them go. Then God said, "The oldest boy in each family of the people of Egypt will die, but my people will be safe." It happened just as God said, and that night the king called Moses. "Go," he said. So God's people took all that they had and left. So next week we'll hear about what happens after they left the king. So the reason the king didn't want the people to leave is because he wanted them to be slaves. They had to work so hard, because he liked to have huge towers made out of stone. They were called pyramids. So can you find some blocks of wood or something to build with? And we'll pretend we're making the pyramids. So they started big on the bottom and they got smaller and smaller. And the people had to work so hard. The king was so mean. And harder and harder and harder. And they usually had some kind of a point on the top. So there's my pyramid. How does yours look? Hey? So, do you know a song called "Go Down Moses"? I'll sing it to you. See if you've ever heard it before. It goes like this. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. So next week we'll hear about what happened after the Pharaoh finally let the people and Moses leave the land. See you next week.